I think we are live. Thank you so much to everyone that's joining us. I am Tracy Capriato. This is the Female Shop Owner Panel. Now, if you recognize my last name, you might know my dad, Carm Capriato. He's actually been the MC for this incredible event by AutoLeap Amplify 2023. Thanks again, AutoLeap, for providing this conference to everybody virtually. But Carm is also the host of the Remarkable Results radio podcast. He started that journey 8 years ago, and we've actually grown and expanded. And now we have the Aftermarket Radio Network. So all these hosts above me right here, above my screen, are part of the Aftermarket Radio Network. You can get any of their episodes, any of their podcasts on aftermarketradio.com or your favorite podcast listening apps. So I would like to introduce my panel of amazing business women. With us today is Mose Barrera. She is the owner of Mose Auto in Seattle, Washington. She is a 20-year veteran in our industry, and she went from a technician to a CEO. So I'm really excited to dive more into that storyline, Mose. Also with us today is Helene Karat. She is the owner of 360 Automotive in Cottonwood, Arizona. She has a huge passion for apprenticeships and the career path needed to go tandem with an apprenticeship program in order to have a successful one. So I think all shop owners really need to be dialed into apprenticeship programs within their own shop to get more of this younger generation involved in our industry. Last but certainly not least, Selena Moore is with us. She is the owner of Tech on the Way, a mobile repair business in Atlanta, Georgia. So she has an incredible perspective with customers as she's on the road repairing these vehicles as a female technician herself. So thank you, ladies, so much for joining us today. I'm honored to be your moderator and a female in this industry as well. So again, welcome to all of our guests. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I have Julia on the back end that's going to help with that. But let's start this off. Let's kick it off. Selena, I'm going to start with you. So you are literally boots on the ground, a female technician. You have your own mobile repair business. What are you hearing and feeling and seeing from customers as a female technician coming to a customer? You're about to work on their vehicle. From both the male and female perspective, what is it that you are hearing as a female technician?
Well, first, thank you, Tracy. Thank you, AutoLeap. I appreciate the opportunity to be in front of everybody and hear some great panelists. But honestly, I think that it's being more received now by both male and female customers than maybe like when I started 15 years ago. I think that on the car side, because remember, I do cars as well as commercial trucks and fleet services. On the car side, I think the women and the men are way more accepting than on the diesel side, where they're like, wait a minute, this is a little more specialized. Like, are you sure you know what you're doing? I find that the women customers are more inclined to call me. They go on, they say, we saw your reviews, we saw it was a woman, and we feel like you're going to be honest with us. You're not going to try to go over our head with terminology that we don't understand. I do my best to try to explain things to customers from beginning to end so that they know what to expect of me as a technician and of the service as a whole. The men, on the other hand, funny point is, I think being a unicorn, they kind of just want to see. It's like, I'm going to hire you because I just want to see. And some of them will actually stand there and have this bewildered look on their face watching you work. Like, wow, she's really grabbing a wrench. Wow, she really knows what to do with that wrench. So you kind of have to be focused and kind of block out that noise. But overall, I would say that my services are very well received because I'm good at what I do. I have a customer service background, so it was easy to bring that over into the automotive side. So yeah.
Jose and Helene, what are your perspectives as shop owners and as the female business owner? What are you hearing from customers? Um, what sort of kind of perspective do you have on this topic that we're talking about right now?
So yeah, there's definitely a lot more acceptance now than there was back in the day when I started. But yeah, we get people come in and like she said, like, oh, you're a female, you're not gonna rip us off. And there's kind of like that blind trust just based on that, which gets a little scary sometimes because they don't ask any questions and it's like, okay, did you understand anything I just told you? And that it almost puts a little bit more pressure on you to make sure that the communication's right and they understand everything. I've had a couple of like the older generation come in and all mad because we're breaking the status quo. Back in the day we didn't have to get jobs and now you're all working on cars and everybody thinks that we could do stuff. And I'm like, yeah, well, I don't know. And then I've gotten it from the flip side of that too, where they're like, I wish it was an option when they were looking for a career path. And I guess I was like, nobody pushed the career path, but I don't remember anybody saying we couldn't. Did somebody tell you couldn't be a mechanic? Because I don't remember anybody telling me that. Like I just kind of was like, all right, something to do. I'm gonna go do it.
I think in a way, yeah. I mean, it all depends on how you grew up when somebody doesn't tell you you can't do something, right? A lot of women really that I've heard of really started in the business and they had to leave because of harassment. They had to leave because of misogyny. They had to leave because they had a family and they after they got pregnant and had a kid, they couldn't go back, right? Or they simply said, well, you're a woman, you can't do this, you have to do something else. So those pathways weren't available to them. When it came to me, I just loved cars. I've loved cars since I was a little girl. And so it just became a thing that I wanted to do. And I'm also a fixer. I'm like very curious about if things break, how do we fix this? Does this work? How we're going to move forward with it? But yeah, I can totally resonate with people being like, oh yeah, I'm here to talk to the shop owner. And I'm like, right here. And they're like, oh, where's your husband? And I was like, no, there's no husband. This is me. And like, if anything, there's a wife, right? I'm married, I date women, I'm a queer person. You see all the rainbows around my shop. You should, read the room, right? But there's still that little thing that men or even women, I think it's really hard for us to kind of realize that women are also misogynistic and kind of in disbelief. But living in Seattle is different. Living in Seattle, there's a huge queer community. There's a huge push for POC folk, for women to be able to have businesses, and people look for that. And they look at the reviews and like Selena said, they're like, oh, you're a woman. I want to go and support you. I want to be able to do this. You said the same thing. And so it's like having that community around us really helps us out. But then there's the non-believers. I've had people talk to my text and be like, oh, you work for a woman? Why are you working for a woman? Why are you, taking orders from a woman? And they're like, because she knows what she's doing. And she actually treats me like an actual person. And she cares about me. Unlike you, that you obviously don't care about anybody. So get out of the shop too, right? And so being able to have that support, not only from our male counterparts, but also our female folk and our communities, it's vital for us to be able to do this. Bringing internships in, I think it's a great thing. I'm working on that too. And I also provide classes for women or women identified folks who want to come in a space where, again, you feel like you're going to be listened to, that you can ask questions that you wouldn't be able to ask in a room full of other types of people, that you would feel judged. When you're in a community setting, you feel more open to being able to ask questions and to integrate yourself into that environment.
I think support is huge. And what I'm hearing from the three of you is how important that is to have that support. And that, yeah, you might get flack from both men and women, and it's going to happen, but you have to be strong on your own. You have to rely on the training that you have and your own personal, I'm doing this kind of attitude. So I love that. Mose, you were speaking about internships and apprenticeships, and I would love to dive into that. Helene, I know that you have an incredible story about hiring someone who has no automotive experience. So if you would like to talk about that, I would love to listen to that.
Okay. So yeah, we like everybody else always looking for employees, and If you had to have that like unicorn ATAC walk in. So I'm out to dinner, and this was probably I'm gonna say 3 years ago. It might be a little bit longer. Out to dinner with a friend, and we're sitting at the bar getting dinner, and there's this family across from us, and it's this kid's birthday, and he asked the staff there or the waitress there for a job application. So she goes over and hands him the application, and I turn around to her and I'm like, well, if you don't want them, send them over. I'll see what we can do. And he was outside my shop the next day before I got there. And I'm usually here at like 7:30 in the morning at that point. And yeah, he's outside, and yeah, I want a job. And
How
I'm
old,
like,
how
okay.
old was he? Do you
He
remember?
was 16. He had just turned 16. And I'm like, all right, you know the difference, but you have any tools? And he's like, no. Like, you know the difference between a flathead and a Phillips? And he's like, what's that? Like, okay, perfect. We can train this one. And 3 years later, he's been awesome. He's going part-time. He's taking some college classes, and he comes in, and he just phenomenal job and getting where he needs to be. And he started buying tools. He finally picked up his first actual real Snap-on box. So he's been doing great. Yeah, because when he first started, he was going to a school that didn't have an auto program. And they talked him into transferring. And of course, it's right before COVID, and COVID hit, and that was the end of that class. But all three of the kids I have now all came out of that automotive program at the high school. So we've been doing good with that one.
That's awesome. Mose or Selena, do you have any apprentices that you're currently working with?
Yeah, I think that's a great story because, when you have somebody so green, you get to tailor them to your needs and your way of working, correct? Because then you're like, well, this is how I do things. And they're like, great, let me figure this out. Let me fix this out, right? And as long as they are honest with you and they're like, I don't know what that is, you have somebody that you can actually mold and teach and move forward. When people think they know too much, just like when I think I know too much, I mess up. And so I'm always reminded to go back to, you know what, this is not working. Let's unplug the modem, because that's the easiest thing to do. And sometimes we complicate ourselves with all these really complex things when the problem is so much easier than that. And so I think getting somebody that's really green is a really great start to move things forward, or somebody that has an idea that, you know what, I don't know much about this. I am willing to learn and I'm willing to move forward. That's the greatest thing. The other thing I look for somebody when they're coming in is customer service. If they have a customer service background, if they understand how to talk to people, how to be social, how to stop and ask questions, those are the people that are going to be more easily trained. But the people that tell you, oh, I have a YouTube channel, and I know how to do these things, and look at my YouTube channel, you're like, oh, this is great. All right, take the starter off. And then they literally take the starter apart before taking it off. That becomes a problem, So that's really hard. And they're like, oh, look, I took the starter off. I'm like, oh yeah, you took it apart. That's great because it doesn't work, but we got to go back a little bit, right? And so things that happen all of the time. I think especially young people, nurturing and guiding them to something else that is not necessarily a college career is 100% the way to go. I knew since I was very young that I did not want to go to college. I wanted to be a doctor. Then I realized that I had to go to school for like 15 more years or whatever it was. I was like, no, Mose's not going to do that. Let's just figure something fun to do. I grew up in a business setting. And so I knew I wanted my own business. I always used to go to like stereo shops and like repair shops. And I always be like, ooh, I want one of those. This is so cool. And now I'm living it. I'm living the dream. And it's moving forward, and it's made my life a lot better, just because I am living my true self. I am living the dream, as it's just it. And sometimes I complain and I'm like, oh, I have to get to work before 9 a.m. I mean, I hear you get to work at 7:30 and I'm like, yeah, most I don't do that either. So it's hard. It's hard, but moving into different roles and moving into different things has definitely helped with that. The best part of my job, I think, is going out to schools, to high schools or colleges or technical colleges, and talking to people, and women coming up to you and being like, wow, I didn't know that this was a pathway. I didn't know I could do this. This is awesome. Or older people, they're like, oh, I always wish I could be in automotive. I always wish I could be a mechanic. And I was like, you can. Come on over. Let's have a day in the shop and see how you feel. Maybe you want a career change. you know, and
Mhm.
there's so many other things to do in automotive than just be a mechanic. The automotive field is so vast that you can be in automotive and not necessarily have to be fixing and wrenching all the time.
Right.
Okay, guess it's down to me. I actually do have my first apprentice, and it's a woman, so I'm extremely excited about it. Um, One of the difficulties, though, is being that I touch so many different types of equipment, you know, and being mobile. So she comes out with me, she hops in the truck, and she doesn't know what to expect from that day. You know, we could start on a tractor and do a PM service, and then turn around. The next vehicle is a Honda that needs some electrical diagnostics. And then we've got a car carrier after that, where we're doing, you know, the brakes or something like that. So she's getting so much at once, and trying to absorb all of those different mechanisms, because there is some differences between gas and diesel. But she shows up, she's on time, she's early, she's eager to go. So I'm excited on how this is going. And actually, I have another young lady that's graduating one of Napa's automotive programs. So I'm going to her graduation next week to actually meet her and kind of see where she is. So that would be great. No, I'm not trying to have an all-female band. That would be awesome, though. Seriously, I'll put that out there. I just want good technicians who understand that this is hard work. It's very frustrating in the beginning, especially when you're learning from scratch. Like Helene said, you know, like, do you know the difference between a flathead and a Phillips? And they're like, no, like, okay, so we got to start at the basics. Like, what are tools? Why do we use them? How to use them safely? You know, so
Yeah.
it is a lot in that aspect of trying to figure out the best way. So when I got into the field, it was very much, okay, you got your tools, you did a little school. All right, here's a head gasket. Go handle it. What? A head gasket? Literally, that was it. 2 weeks into my internship, I was given a head gasket on very old. It was like an '89 Nissan Sentra. It was completely rusted out. You could not access none of the exhaust. And, you know, school, the engine was out. It was clean. We didn't have to do any struggles. And then now being mobile on top of that, you have to be able to figure it out. You know, you're actually on an island almost by yourself. Yes, you can call and get resources and things like that, but you have to have the drive to put in the work to be good at what you're doing, to know how to be safe, and all of those different things, and investing in yourself and having the right tools for the job. So I'm excited about it. I'm looking forward to bringing more people on when I can. And
I love it. I love hearing that all three of you have great success with apprentices. Do you feel that that is really the pipeline to get more of the younger generation involved in our industry, is to kind of capture them from school, from grade school, middle school, high school, get them involved, let them know that this is a high tech industry. It's not just the stereotypical grease person, fumbling around in overalls with a strap hanging off, So are you seeing more of the younger generation kind of being interested in our field?
We're starting to see at least some of them, because there's definitely that group of them that, what's outside and what's work. But the ones that want to work are awesome. The biggest issue I see is a lot of them will start out at other shops or dealerships, and they have them doing oil changes for like 3 to 5 years. And then all of a sudden their mechanic calls out sick or whatever. And they're like, here's the head gasket. And they're kind of like, well, what do you want me to do with that? Like, all you taught me how to do is change oil. And a lot of them, after about 6 months to a year, if that's all they're doing and there's no forward movement, there's no other training, they're not letting them do anything else. A lot of them lose interest and go on to other things. So part of bringing them up is that exposure to, I had the group I had, they were still in school and they were pulling engines and transmissions and timing belts and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, you had to kind of babysit a little bit because, they're trying to figure it out and not sure what they're doing. And but you kind of need to, if you want that ATEC 5-10 years from now, you kind of got to start somewhere, and you got to bring them up and keep them interested in it, and not just be like, yep, here, go change oil and that's it.
I would say that it's better to have them young. As like you said, you can train them and mold them. Mosaic was like, you start fresh, turn them into almost whatever it is that you need them to be successful. So like also they become more interested, because young people are like, oh, what is that? I want to see if I can do it. And then they start to gain self-confidence in doing it. I say, hey, you know what, maybe I can make a career out of this. Maybe I am good enough to be able to own my own shop one day, because I'm able to catch on to these things. The other side of that too is they have less responsibilities. So they're able to devote more time to learning and perfecting their craft. So I would definitely say if you can go after the youth, that's who you want to, but anybody can pick it up. So long as they have the openness, like a child, to just want to learn and be in a wondrous thing. And I think that's amazing what you do. It says a lot about your patience level and your care for wanting to see someone successful in the end, because being an owner comes with its issues in itself and its stresses. And then to take someone and say, I have to learn your personality style, learn your learning style, and be able to effectively turn you into a top technician down the line.
And also when they're young, they don't have that fear. Like there are certain jobs I'll look at and be like, I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, because I've been in there before. I know what can go wrong. I know what it's going to cost me when it goes wrong. And they're just like, okay, this is what we're doing today. And there's no fear. They're just pulling stuff apart and putting it back together, and it works.
Yeah, definitely the way to do that is to, get hands-on is the only way you're going to learn how to be a technician, right? And that's what we do at the shop. We currently have a girl who just turned 18. She's still in high school and trying to do things, but she's coming in and she already knows how to do brakes on her own. She obviously knows how to do oil changes. We've had her do spark plugs. And so the way we work at the shop is like, if we're doing something big or brakes and stuff, we always have somebody else come in and check. Basic procedures. Start with safety and make sure that people have a little bit of common sense, because it's hard. If you don't have common sense in this industry, you're going to suffer a lot and you're going to hurt yourself a lot. So being able to move past that and kind of like teaching them the safety things. Hey, remember to put this here. Remember you got tires, and double up on those tires. Put some tires under here. And then having them work with an ATEC who is patient enough to say, hey, this is what I need you to do. You're going to take these bolts out. When you're done with that, I'll be back. Giving them a little independence, but also giving them that responsibility that you have to do this in a certain amount of time, and you're going to be able to move this forward. And once you can't do anything more, just stop, because that will cost us money, and that's when the business owner mind comes in. When you're a technician, you just want to go in and do the thing and fix it and take it apart and then put it back together. But when you're an owner, you're like, oh, well, this is going to cost us. This can be this can be that. So moving into that realm of reality and like different things that we have to do, taking care of the bottom line, taking care of paying everybody, insurance or whatever it is that we're dealing with that day, taking care of customers, fleet accounts, all these things kind of combine into the training that you're giving them. And then also being able to be there with them and like knowing their personalities, right? That's something that Selena said, knowing their personalities. They may not be a good tech, but they're going to be an amazing service writer, or they're going to be an amazing fleet account manager, or they're going to be an amazing customer service person. So being able to pull the best from them and then keeping them in the automotive industry is the thing we also have to do as leaders in this industry. Whether we're technicians, we're an ATEC, and we're teaching somebody, or as a business owner, how do we make the best of these people to help us out in our business and to help themselves in the future? The one thing I always tell my employees is that, hey, you're working for me. I have a reputation in this town. If you go someplace else and you ask for a job, they're going to be like, where did you work? Oh, Mosaic Auto. Oh yeah, amazing. Yes, let me sign you up. But I need you to have that level of performance also. I need you to perform at this level to be able to stay with us. because you've pulled my name out anywhere in the city, people know who I am, and they know that the work is guaranteed, and they know that it's good work. So if you're going to be working with me, you're not only going to be working for the company and creating my company, you're going to be building a name for yourself once you decide to go independent or you decide to go to work someplace else.
I love,
No,
I
another
love that.
point too, Tracy, with having someone that you're training from scratch, I think you end up with a better result when you teach them why. You know, not just, oh, you have to change your brake pads. Well, why? How does this system work? Because if they're not getting that formal book education, then understanding how the system works, they're able to better diagnose it. And there's less chance of them messing something up or skipping steps because they know each step is important and why it's important at the end.
I love it. Ladies, I think this is very encouraging for all shop owners to hear that the three of you have had apprentices from the ground up with barely any automotive experience, maybe a little bit, maybe none at all, and you are getting it done. You're training them from literally, like I said, the ground up. So if you're not involved, if you're a shop owner, you're not involved with your local community college or local high school, please, please, please get involved. It's as easy as knocking on the door and saying, how can I help? So it's a great opportunity for your community as well. And I think what I'm hearing from the three of you is it's so important to map out a career path and be able to introduce them to different skill sets and have the patience to do that, having a mentor involved in the shop as well. So really, thank you so much for what you're doing and getting involved. Selena, I see on your arm patch there, you got an ASC patch.
Yeah.
Let's kind of lean into that with certifications and training and really just bringing the professionalism of this industry up. So go ahead, Selena. What is your perspective on ASC certifications and training?
I think that it is highly important. The training aspect. We're going to separate the training from the ASCs because you can very well be an ATEC without having ASCs, you know, or you can have ASCs and you were able to take the test, you understand the inner workings, but you didn't get much training after that to actually implement those things and expound upon them in between your recertifications. Now, with that being said, I think that it all depends on your career path, where you see yourself later on down the line. If you do want to just turn wrenches, okay, fine. In my experience, if you want to turn wrenches your entire career before you retire, you do not need these certifications. Do they help? Do some jobs offer incentives for you getting them? Absolutely, but they are not a requirement. Now, if you want to open your own shop or your own mobile service, or just be a tech for hire as an independent contractor, I think that these certifications put you in a different market. One, I'm able to do services that the average shop can't do, especially mobile, like let's say driving schools, doing their safety inspections. You have to be ASC certified. It also increases your revenue by being able to add those additional services. I also have extra ways for customers to pay. Like I take insurance. You have to be ASC certified. You know, I take these aftermarket repair warranty services that people pay into monthly in case of breakdowns. You have to be ASC certified. The work has to be performed by an ASC certified technician. So I started getting them immediately once I crossed over into diesel, because I already knew where I wanted to end up. I knew I wanted to own my own business at some point. So I started preparing for that long before I actually laid the groundwork physically for doing it, like, you know, setting up the business structure. So I started right off the bat. Let me apply this. Let me learn as much as I can. I pulled from the other technicians in the shop that were ASC certified. The other part to that is you're gonna have to set aside time to study, learn, educate. Like for me, I'm playing both sides. I'm the owner and I'm the technician. So I have to carve out time to stay ahead of the game, to be on top of my game, to provide excellent service for customers. Like one thing that really grinds my gears is when I have to tell a customer, I do not provide that service. Like, of course, there's some things like swapping engines and rebuilds. First of all, I'm not doing that no more. I've passed the grunt stage. Second of all, it's not conducive to time and money when being mobile. So that doesn't bother me too much. But when they have a particular vehicle or something that has some new module or some new component to that vehicle, and I'm like, well, I don't know about that. Oh, I got to go back. I got to study. I got to look into this. I have to set aside time to know, because I plan on being around for many, many years to come. And we have to grow with the industry. Not even that too, sometimes things that were already set in place before, that's why we have technical service bulletins. They update things. So if you don't go back and look and make sure that you're still well-versed in what's happening, let's say Chevy updated their, I don't know, their oil change process. They said they came out with a new filter that now goes through the firewall. I don't know, just something ridiculous. But you're not aware of it. And now you have these newer 23 and 2024 cars coming in where the oil filter goes in the firewall and you're completely clueless. And it only takes one time for a customer to have a bad experience. And I was taught years ago that every customer you encounter 6 people. So if they had a good experience, they're going to tell at least 6 other people about it. And the same goes for if they had a bad experience. So as a technician, you want to get paid, do your training, get the certifications if it's conducive to your career path. As an owner, depending on where you are, if you're still turning wrenches, get them. It also helps lower your insurance premiums on the commercial side and things like that, because it says to the insurance company, hey, it's less likely that something is going to go wrong in this instance if this technician or this shop or this mobile service has these certifications that have been proven to say that, no, I may not know everything, but I know enough that I have the right tools, I have the experience, and I have the resources to go get the information and things that I may not have at the moment, but I can get it and still see your repair or your service to the end with a quality work.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Yep. Training and learning is a never ending journey. And I know that is super, super important. Selena, I'm laughing because what we hear on the podcast all the time is you have to read service information. Like you have to be able to read and comprehend service information. And it's as easy as doing that, but it's an important step that you cannot skip. Helene and Mose, what is your perspective on training for your technicians and also for yourself?
Training we keep up on. I send everybody to every class I can locally. I'm hopefully this year, otherwise next year, to start going to the bigger events like SEMA and Apex and Vision and all those other larger classes. But we do go to whatever we can locally. There's a couple of shops that'll host stuff through either O'Reilly's or Napa, and every once in a while they'll bring up somebody completely independent. And we've had a lot of good classes that way. As far as the certifications, it was the only way I was able to get in the door. I went to UTI and everybody's like, oh, you're a girl, whatever. And well, when I walked in and here's my state inspection license and here's, all 8 ASEs and, all that. And it kind of forces them to look at it a little bit closer before dismissing it. Because at that point on paper, you're just as qualified, if not more qualified than anyone else they're looking at. From the hiring perspective, for me, it tells me that the technician can read and they can process the information. Not so much. I've seen technicians that don't have any certifications that are phenomenal technicians. And I've seen it go the other way where they have 40, world-class technician and they can't fix a sandwich. So, and it goes both ways. It's very dependent on that individual tech. But those certifications definitely open.
Yeah, for me, the path was completely different. I think I started in the industry. I didn't even know what ASE certifications were. I started in 2002, I believe. Yeah, about 20 years ago, being a parts in the parts counter and working through that, still loving cars, working on my own stuff. Moved to Seattle in 2008. 2005, started real estate, market crashed. I had to find a whole new thing to do. I've always loved cars. I heard about car auctions, and that's how I started. And so I started fixing my own cars and doing these things. Then I found myself on the other side of the counter. And so when I found myself on the other side of the counter, I saw how women are actually treated. I always used to provide the customer service. So when somebody else provided the customer service to me, I was like, holy cow, this is not okay. And I was like, I can do this on my own. I can help other people. I can create a business. And so that's how I started. I taught myself how to fix cars. I aligned myself with, contractor mechanics who later became my friends, who are A-Tech techs. One of them is working for me now. And I've never needed an ASE certification to do what I do. Nobody has ever asked me for one. Maybe one person in the 12 years I've had the shop. I work with insurance companies. I work with, maybe in Seattle, it's different, but I'm guessing states work differently and rules and regulations are different in that aspect. But I do believe in training, especially with the newer vehicles. You have all this software coming in. You have things that need to be updated constantly. You need to have 10, 12 scanners around you to be able to fix one problem. We work a lot on BMWs, Audis, and now we're starting to work on Teslas. And so Tesla is very proprietary. So anything that has to do with software, we just send it out to Tesla and sorry, but we can't help you. With Teslas, we do mostly suspension brakes, cooling stuff, maintenance that happens yearly with those vehicles. BMWs, all sorts of stuff. But there are things that you really can't do. There are things like most of the stuff now is not mechanical, it's software driven. Every single item in your vehicle has a module. If that module is not talking to the other modules, things are not going to work. You have to have the scan tool to get into that module, to program that module, to do all these things. And you have to have the people trained enough to be able to understand those things and how these things work. And so I've always said to everybody that I work with, or customers who come in, or people who ask, what do you guys do as mechanics? How is it fixing, the wrenching and like getting dirty? And I was like, well, it's very interesting because as mechanics, we are plumbers, we're electricians, we're mechanics, and now we're software engineers. And so we're 4 industries in one. And when people walk in, they're like, oh my God, you're charging me $150 an hour or whatever your rate is. They're like, why are you charging me so much? And I was like, well, that's how it is. We have to be profitable. This is a business. And so I think that's another conversation we also need to have. As women, I think for me, it took me a very long time to figure out what my shop rate was going to be. What do I need to do to be profitable in any type of business, much less in this business? Because then we add the parts part of things, because we're also a parts supplier. So we're 5 different things. If you call a plumber to your house, he's just a plumber. And he's going to charge you $200 to go to your house, plus just to go to your house, plus whatever he's going to do, right? And so how do we change the conversation around what shops charge? How do we educate the public when it comes to that also? I think a lot of that stuff has to do with telling people what we do, how we do it, and educating them on what it is. There's tons of YouTube videos there that are like, 45 minutes. Oh, look, I have a head gasket out. Yay. We have a head gasket fixed. And people come in, well, this is what I want to do. And they're like, why is it going to take you 4 days to do this?
If they can do that head gasket in 45 minutes, I want them here.
Yeah.
I think we all want them. We'll share them.
Right?
Yeah. And it's obviously something you can't do, right? You wouldn't be here if you could do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a really complex thing that's happening now. And then it's a very complex thing that's happening with us as women, I think, in the industry, being able to kind of figure out what do we need to charge as a business, not only as women shop owners, but as shop owners in general. I think overall, we all have that that question in our minds. And then we're moving from a technician to an owner. That's a whole other learning curve, because we learned how to be technicians, we learned how to work on cars, but now we have to learn how to run a business. Now we need to learn how to run HR. Now we need to learn how to run marketing. Now we need to learn all these things that, as myself, as a small shop, I don't have that cash flow to be able to move all those things forward. So how do we do this? But that's a whole other thing than an ASC certification.
No, but you touched on something very important, piggybacking off of the training with charging, because I think that whether you have the certifications or not, being aware of where you are as a technician or as an owner or as a new or existing shop, and how you charge. Because when we first start out, I don't think any of us ever charge properly. We feel like we can't charge numbers that we've seen other people charge, like, oh, well, we're not there yet, so we have to take less. And one day I looked around and I had all these cars out the driveway and I was broke. And I'm like, something's not adding up here. If I'm working 7 days a week, I should be able to have something to show for that. Then you go back and you revisit. So I think some of the training too, on the owner side, of knowing what some numbers and stuff are supposed to look like. I was fortunate because I hit every level as a technician. I was a foreman before I walked away and started my own business. So I saw the business back end of some of those numbers, how they were charging, why they charged that. So when I started out, it was like, I still started out a little lower, but my rate was a lot higher than what some people expected it to be. And then now where my rate is, it's like, my price is my price. Because like you said, Mose, we're doing 5, 6 different jobs. Like, we gotta be a plumber, we gotta figure out where this leak is coming from and how to stop it. We gotta, we're a parts person, where we need to know the software and do the diagnostics. And there's so many different moving parts to it. And if you wanna get a quality technician or hire a quality shop and get the service, they're looking for dealership service. It doesn't matter who they go to. They're looking for dealership service. So if you want this, it's going to cost. And you, as a technician or as an owner, you have to charge accordingly. We have to charge for all those little things. And even being a woman, you feel like, well, I need to be accepted first before I can really get any money out of this. No, if you're paying $65 a week for uniforms, if you're paying, another $50 to $60 for shop towels and a $20 jar of grease for brakes, and all of those things add up, and you have to charge for them outside of charging for your time. So that was a very, very important topic there of how to charge, and learning where you are and in the area around you too. Because the problem I run into is the car customers get upset because they feel I charge too much. But it's like, I'm also a diesel technician too. So I just have a streamlined, this is my price across the board. Yes, the commercial side, they do get charged differently as far as the different services that are added on versus the customer, because I know that there's a huge income difference a lot of times, because commercial side is business to business. Cars are just, everyday people trying to get by. However, I still have to have a base, and it's like, oh, a headlight's out. How much does it cost? Well, it's $150. Well, if it takes you 10 minutes to do it, is it cheaper? No, it's not. My rate is $150 an hour. I have a bottom of 1 hour, within certain radiuses, and that's just that. I'll try to convince them, hey, well, why don't you do, you have this other services, why don't you wait or do all of these services collectively, and then you can save that way rather than doing piece by piece by piece. But you gotta be firm on your terms. You gotta be firm on your price, and you gotta charge accordingly, because we're in this for profit. Yes, right. We love it at the end of the day, and we wanna be like, hey, look what I did. I fixed this, it was great. Came in here, 5 other shops couldn't figure it out. Now, yeah. But we wanna look at that invoice when they pay it and say, okay, this was worth it. This was worth my time, my energy, my experience, my certifications, or my whatever it is that you're bringing to the table. Got to charge accordingly.
I love that.
A great one, Mosaic.
Thank you.
100%. And then just one last thing, you know, and that's where the education part comes in to the customer. How does this work? Who we are, what we do, what happens, you know? And ultimately, you know, hearing this is like, we're also counselors, because people come in and they're like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? And you're like, calm down, it's gonna be okay. You're here now, it's gonna be fine. Or, you know, when you fix a car that's been to 5 different shops, right? And then at the end of the day, you're like, hey, this is how much it's gonna cost. They're like, I've already spent this much money. And you're like, I understand that.
Has nothing to do.
But this is it. Like, if I can't fix it, 1, I won't charge you, or 2, I will let you know what, I cannot fix this. I will not take your money. That's the other thing. Having integrity in this business is also another thing. And I think people come to us as women shop owners because they believe that we have integrity, and we do. I mean, that's not a belief, that's not a myth, right? But how do we change that situation from the industry itself? How do we work collectively as shop owners, small shop owners and independent shop owners, to change that? And how do we get these big chains to join with us to change that mentality in the consumer? Education to me is the number one thing. Educate our customers, educate people on what we do, get the information out there, and hopefully we'll move the industry in a better direction, because we deserve this. We are problem solvers. So going back to what you said, Selena, we're problem solvers. So we're like, oh yeah, I fixed that for you. Give me a 6-pack. That's how we started, right? Oh yeah, let's have a barbecue. Oh, I fixed your car. Yeah, let's have a barbecue afterwards. Oh, don't worry about it. It'll be fine. We are fixers. We want to fix the things. Overall, we want to fix the world, right? Because as mechanics, that's what we do. And so that makes us hinder how much can we charge. And we're like, oh yeah, that just 10 minutes, I don't even worry about it. I do that stuff even now, and it's hard for me because, like you say, oh, at the end of the month, you're like, wait a minute.
Don't add up here.
Yeah.
Ladies, I am so loving this discussion. I'm not sure why they didn't give us like 3 hours to do this session, but maybe we can talk about them.
It's okay. We'll have our own thing
for the next one.
Yeah, we'll have our own session. We're running out of time here, but I just wanted to say thank you again to Helene Karat, Mosaic Barrera, and Selena Moore for joining us today. And thank you to AutoLeap and Amplify 2023 for putting on this incredible virtual event. Like I said, I wish we had more time, ladies. We could go on, I think, forever. So maybe we should schedule that, because I think I know a couple podcasts that might love this topic. So thanks again, ladies. And thank you to everyone who has been with us. I know I am truly inspired just listening to you 3 ladies. You've really given us a great perspective on the industry through your eyes. And that's so important. So again, thank you so much, ladies. Thank you, AutoLeap. This has been a real treat, and I'm honored to be a part of it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Tracy, AutoLeap, Amplify, Mosaic, Lane, and everyone that was in attendance. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
And thanks for all the comments. There were great comments coming in. Everyone's really loving what you were saying. So it's definitely appreciated.